you fall, watch you lose in control. I'm seeing red, watch you rise, watch you fall. Now I'm about to break, face the pain, no escape. Can you step to this? Face the pain, no escape. Can you step to this? Face the pain. Face the pain, no escape. Can you step to this?
What's going on, fight fans? Welcome to another episode of the Fixed Fights podcast with Kurt and Ben. As always, I'm Kurt. I'm here with my main man, Ben. How you doing this week, dude?
Pretty good, man. Weather is tipping to fall. We got back on our normal MMA talk this week. Pretty good, man. I'm feeling good this week.
Yeah, same here. It's been a little bit kind of all over the place the last couple of weeks, but we have had a lot of stuff to fill in. You actually just did an interview with Elizabeth Clay this past week, so check that out. She's got the big Who's Number One tournament coming up this weekend, which we're going to talk about a little bit later in the show. We had Dan Tom on, so definitely keeping the train moving, but it's good to be back talking regular MMA.
Yeah, dude. And we are coming back to talk about a banger of a card. I feel like it's been a minute since we've had a card like this where there's like multiple fights that I feel like I'm super pumped about them. The violence potential in these fights. Obviously, we got a throwback fight like UFC 266, which obviously we're going to talk a fair amount about today. Gets me pumped. Like, I'm excited because we had all those UFC Fight Night cards, which would have one or two fights where it's like, yeah, I'm really excited about this fight, but overall they just kind of blend together. Whereas this one, this UFC pay-per-view finally sticks out, is something to be excited about.
Yeah, I'm actually hopping on Daniel Vreeland's prelim primer after this, and I took a quick peek at the undercard, and I really don't have to do that much studying. Yeah, like you just said, you see some of these fight night cards which we're actually going to talk about, like the Ryan Spann, Anthony Smith fight. There's a couple of good fights on the card, but then in the prelims, you're having to, scour the web for all this information. But this card, top to bottom, really freaking good, especially that main card. There's a lot to like. But before we talk about that, let's talk about some MMA that did happen this past weekend. We'll start with the aforementioned Ryan Spann, Anthony Smith fight. We didn't get to talk about it too much beforehand, but it was a little bit weird. The pairing wasn't necessarily weird, but in a main event spot, it was weird. But again, when there's 700 whatever fighters on the roster and you got cards every single weekend, sometimes it's going to have to do. But Anthony Smith does not disappoint, goes out there and carves through Ryan Spann and then kind of has a meltdown after the fight. I got to say, man, every time I go to want to count Anthony Smith out, at least in the let's say the title picture and the getting main events atmosphere, he goes out and does something like this. I was really impressed.
Yeah, and I'm with you, man, that I feel like how many times have we been talking about Anthony Smith disappointing us? Anthony Smith going out there and just kind of shelling up at signs of adversity or just not putting his foot on the gas. And obviously he was personally fired up about shit Ryan Spann had said. One of those things too, like you said, we didn't really talk about the lead up to this fight, but I thought the beef here, the personal beef, was hard for me to understand. Ryan Spann discrediting Anthony Smith or something. That's what got Anthony Smith super fucking pissed off. Just saying your career is not great is what does it to turn Anthony Smith into that kind of fighter. I hope more guys do it. But yeah, right on the edge, I feel like I'm constantly ready to write off Anthony Smith, and then he goes and does something like this, which is the beauty of MMA, and especially light heavyweight. Shit like this will happen all the time.
Yeah, guy's had a crazy career, right? I mean, he's 36-16 now. He's fought for a title. He's main evented a ton of fights. He was cut from the UFC. He worked his way back, but now he's looking at a 3-fight win streak. Called out Alexander Rakic after the fight, and it seems like Rakic is down for that fight. They fought in August 2020. Maybe Rakic isn't getting the vibe that Yuri Prochazka is going to take that fight, because that seemed like the logical next fight. Are you in to see an Alexander Rakic Anthony Smith rematch?
Yeah, like why not? I'm down if both parties seem down. I mean, right now, I think I'm looking at the updated rankings. Anthony Smith is now 4 and Rakic is 3. Like, if the rankings mean anything, I think that makes sense. Yuri Prohashka is sitting at 2, is just out there, but are we thinking he's waiting for a title shot? Maybe.
I mean, if he doesn't fight Alexander Rakic, I would assume so,
Mhm.
right? Because I
Yeah,
mean, who else makes
there's
sense besides Rakic? It's either him or Rakic, right?
yeah, and I think looking down, nothing else really makes sense for Prohashka if I look down the rest of the rankings.
Yeah. And again, like when Anthony Smith fought Alexander Rakic the first time, he fought very passive. Rakic was able to kind of ground him for most of the fight. He was landing leg kicks, and there was not much pushback from Anthony Smith. But I mean, dude, if Anthony Smith from this fight, if he comes out and fights Rakic like that, man, I don't know if he's going to beat Rakic, but it could be a fun, I would say 5-10 minutes before someone gets knocked and finished.
Well, Anthony Smith hopefully would go out there a fair amount of like kind of abandon, right? Because he knows. I think one reason that Rakic wanted to take is like willing to take that fight is because he felt like Kurt, you probably know what it's like. Well, it's like if you know you can out grapple somebody and just put them on their back and control them, like that is almost as easy in the cage as you can get, right? So I think Rakic probably thinks, oh, I could do that again, get another paycheck, extend my win streak a little bit more before I fight for a title. But hopefully Anthony Smith, if he takes that rematch, can fight with like nothing to lose. He's already fought for a title. He's been in there with John Jones. He wouldn't be expected to win a rematch against Alexander Rakic. Even Anthony Smith's current win streak is a little funky, right? He has that win over Jimmy Crute, which was like when Jimmy Crute was all noodle-legged and stuff. Like,
yep, Michael Chandler leg.
So I think Anthony Smith realizes he's kind of playing with house money here. So like, yeah, let's take another fight. And if he is able to beat Rakic in a rematch, then fuck, Anthony Smith's probably fighting for another title.
Yeah, I agree. I think it makes sense for both of them. I think you laid it out perfectly for Rakic. Yeah, I mean, he probably sees he can go through Anthony Smith again, take a safe fight. If he wins that, there's no denying him a title shot. And yeah, for Anthony Smith, he wants to get that one back. And if he beats Alexander Rakic, yeah, he's right there. I mean, I would think outside of Yuri Prohashka, no one would make more sense than either of them. So I think they were calling for December. We'll see if it happens.
Yeah, I'm into that. Alexander Rakic is a guy that I'm excited about. This last performance notwithstanding, I'm still super excited about Anthony Smith, but Alexander Rakic in general is, I feel like, a guy who still has a pretty bright future at light heavyweight.
Agreed. Co-main event, Ian Cutelaba gets through Devin Clark. I don't know. Not much to say about this fight. Cutelaba's always fun. Devin Clark, man, guy has balls of steel, had his teeth literally rearranged in his mouth and said, fuck it, I'm going to go back out for the next round. Props to him.
Sweet.
Ariana Lipski gets the win over Mandy Baum. Arman Tsarukyan, I think one of the biggest stars of the show, goes out there and gets a finish, which he desperately needed over Christos Giagos. Tsarukyan, I think he's ranked, like 15th in that division, but that guy, we've said it a bunch on the show, he's a guy that you need to keep your eyes on. He is so freaking good.
Yeah, I will never not talk about his fight against Islam Makhachev when I have the chance, because that's like one of the best like grappling heavy fights that we've seen in the past few years. And now people are talking about Makhachev like he's the next coming of Jesus at lightweight. And Arman Tsarukyan, like in his UFC debut, basically went 15 full minutes in a really, really competitive fight with him. So Tsarukyan, yeah, now on a 4-fight win streak with wins over OAM, Davi Hamos, Christos Giagos, I think was on a win streak coming into this. Like, this is super, super fucking impressive. Man, and I'm looking at his typology. Arman Tsarukyan was at one point scheduled to face Nasrat Haqparast, which would have been a fucking banger if that fight goes down.
That would have been a banger.
Overall, yeah, I'm so high on this guy.
Damn, your voice is doing it again. I don't. Yeah, it was like half of what you said, and then it went back to good, and then it went back to shit. Like, I don't. Maybe it's.
Am I blocking the? Let me move the actual mic.
You think it could be my internet connection? I usually do it in this other room.
Well, You're coming through just fine, so I
know,
would be
that's-
surprised if it's you.
I know.
Like, your sound and quality is good.
That is, it's weird. Like, you sound fine right now. It's just sometimes when you talk, it's like it's just real low.
I'm using just. Sometimes I think the speaker I'm using gets overloaded.
Like right now, it's shit.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Now it's fine.
It's better now?
It's better now.
Oh, I know exactly what it is. All right.
Yep, it's shit now.
Okay. It's because I'm using Skype online.
Yep.
I haven't. That's it. All right. So I might be kind of slow looking shit up because I'll just do it on my phone now. But if I stay here, I think we'll be Gucci.
Okay, it sounds fine.
I think it's because I'm using Skype online instead of the app. And when I like open up another tab, is exactly when you say it gets staticky.
Okay. So I don't know if you want to. Do you want to just say the Armin Sarukian thing over again?
Oh fuck.
Basically, I know. Basically, what I had said was just blah blah blah. Sarukian wins. He's a guy to keep your eye on.
Oh, yeah, sure. Sorry, Justin. We'll keep doing this. About 16 minutes. Yeah, Armin Sarukian is like an absolute stud who, in his UFC debut, like took Islam Makhachev to the fucking distance, like wrestled tit for tat with him for 15 full minutes. Like, this is a guy that can grapple, can obviously kickbox and strike with power. Like, he's a guy who I think within a year and a half, 2 years should be like top 5 in a super stacked division because he seems to have all the skills and is like yoked out of his fucking mind. This guy looks like a G.I. Joe figure.
So right now he's ranked 13th actually. I believe they just matched up Rafael Fiziev and Brad Riddell. I mean, dude, Armin Sarukian and Gregor Gillespie fight could be fucking awesome.
I would love that for the wrestling again. Sarukian, I don't even like what are Sarukian's like. What I don't know what his accolades are or his background in wrestling, if he even has like an actual amateur wrestling background, but the guy can do it all, it seems.
Yeah, I agree. He is so freaking good. And it's weird because you look at that, it's crazy. Like everyone in that division is pretty much matched up, looking down, except for like, I mean, a Tony Ferguson maybe, but like I don't know if you book him that high. Again, I kind of want to see Tony fight like a Connor or something like that. Connor's at 9, so you can definitely not get in that fight. Maybe like a Carlos Diego Fajeda or a Gregor Gillespie could be a fun step up for him.
Yeah, I mean, either one of those guys, more grapplers for the fan, the grappling fan in me wants to see him against more grapplers. And it's crazy because he is not, like I've been saying, Sarukian is not like, he's not Davi Hamos. He's not like a jiu-jitsu guy. He's not a wrestler per se. I think he's an all-around guy that just so happens to have skills everywhere.
No, he's very good. Anyone else on this card you want to shout out before we move on?
I think that's it. I don't have the full card in front of me. This is one that I like rewatched in reverse order the next day, like without commercials, all that shit.
I'm gonna have to call you out, Ben, if you don't catch this one. Your girl fought Erin Blanchfield.
Oh, Erin Blanchfield. Fuck. Sorry.
You've been talking about her for like literally like a year. Yeah.
I think she showed. I mean, I don't want to discredit Sarah Alpar, who's obviously like fucking tough as shit, but because she's had her ass handed to her in a couple of UFC fights now. But there's a reason. It's probably been more than a year that I've been saying Erin Blanchfield is the best American prospect in the country. Period. Yeah, she can do it all for real. She was like an EBI champion as a teenager. And then obviously she can kickbox. She has one of the best knockouts I've ever seen in Invicta with a head kick. Like, I think people sleep on Erin Blanchfield a little bit because she's not super scary looking, right? She's not like yoked out of her mind. She's not a Division I wrestler. Not there is women's, I guess, Division I wrestling. She doesn't have like a lot of things that people are like jump off the page other than that EBI championship. But she is the realest of real deals. And I'm not entirely sure where she's training at these days, but especially if she like gets with a mega camp or like American Top Team, something like that, like the sky is the absolute limit for her. Flyweight is for sure on the come up in the women's divisions.
Yeah, she looked really good. I was glad she finally made her debut. Someone to definitely keep an eye on. Again, this is a pretty fun card, top to bottom. Had a lot of finishes, but we'll see, right?
Yeah.
Main event, lots to talk about other than that, some
Right.
big names, but kind of the norm for some of these fight night
Right.
cards, I should say. Yoel Romero finally makes his Bellator debut. Again, another fight we didn't get to talk about a lot, but Yoel Romero making his debut, I don't know if Phil Davis was the right opponent for that debut, and obviously we saw why. People still sleep on Phil Davis all these years later in his career, but man, if you look at Phil Davis's resume, he's fought the best, he's beat some of the best, he's never been finished, he fights a very patient and disciplined style. I mean, Phil Davis doesn't take a lot of risks. He doesn't put himself into a lot of bad positions. And at this stage in Yoel's career, he's not the Yoel of 5-6 years ago where he's not the guy that fought Paulo Costa, and that was even like 2 years ago, right? He's very patient. He's waiting for opportunities and for mistakes, and Phil Davis is just not a guy that makes a lot of mistakes. So let me pitch this back to you like this. Is this more of a, hey, Phil Davis is still that guy for you, or is this more of like a Yoel Romero maybe isn't that guy anymore, or he's just not, he's 44 years old. Maybe it's finally caught up to him to the point where he can't compete with the best of the best in the division.
Man, that's a good question, because I think your breakdown of the fight and like why Phil Davis was probably like, if we had broken this fight down thoroughly beforehand, I think there's a strong chance we both would have picked Phil Davis, because
I 100 would have. Yeah, I agree.
like exactly the reasons that you're saying is that Phil Davis is a guy that just rarely makes mistakes, rarely finds himself in bad positions, and Yoel Romero is a guy who takes advantage of that better than basically anybody else. So I think, to answer your question, like on one hand, this is like maybe 50%. Phil Davis is exactly who we know he was. He's a guy who doesn't make mistakes, is not going to put himself in a spot to get like knocked out by Yoel Romero. We also know that Phil Davis can like mat wrestle, right? If you think about the different types of wrestling, Yoel Romero is super explosive, like freestyle, right? He did freestyle international wrestling, like takedown heavy, but Phil Davis much better mat wrestler, I think, overall. And the longer those exchanges went on, I think they were always destined to be won by Phil Davis. But then on the other hand, I do think this is Yoel Romero we've seen him really be less and less active in fights in recent years. And because he's so fucking explosive and athletic, he can get by with that a lot. But here, facing a guy who's not going to give him any easy openings, I think now Yoel Romero really did look, however old he is, 45, maybe.
Yeah, he's like 44,
60,
45. It's crazy. Yeah, right. It could be.
So like, I do think this is like, well, let's maybe pump the brakes on Yoel Romero for the last couple of years of his career. But I don't know. I think Yoel Romero kind of made a career in the UFC off of taking advantage of guys' mistakes. And Phil Davis just didn't make any here. His takedown timing was perfect. His mat wrestling, when he got him down, I thought was impressive. His work on the outside on the feet was impressive. Maybe I'm leaning more towards, I think we need to give a little bit more credit to Phil Davis. And Yoel Romero is basically the same guy that we know he's been for the past couple of years, which is a super, super low output fighter.
Yeah. Again, I pretty much side with everything you say. Phil Davis deserves a ton of respect here. And it's not the end of the day for Romero. Romero, again, it was his debut. He was up a weight class. Maybe he goes back down to 185. He still has a big enough name where you're going to be able to find at least a couple more interesting fights for him. And again, he got his feet wet. Maybe he goes back to 185, or they just give him a little bit more of a favorable matchup. Phil Davis puts himself in a very interesting position. Now, he has lost twice to Vadim Nemkov. It was announced on the broadcast that Julius Angliskas, who we interviewed before his last fight, where he fought as a tournament replacement, or I guess like the alternate bout or whatever, he's going to get the shot against Nemkov. I think the best case scenario for Phil Davis is rooting for anybody but Nemkov to win this tournament, right?
Yeah, for real. I mean, I'm trying to think. I don't have the fights in front of me. Wasn't their first fight really, really close? Split
Very,
decision,
very
maybe?
close.
I think it's winnable, but Nemkov seems like he's getting better at this point, whereas Phil Davis is still very, very good, but it's hard for me to pinpoint something off. Phil Davis is better at this now. And Nemkov looks like a fucking monster.
Like a monster. And it's kind of sad for Nemkov. I mean, we want to wish our best to Anthony Rumble Johnson, who had to pull out of the Nemkov fight. Undisclosed illness. I guess it wasn't COVID, so let's hope that he heals up and he is good to come back in 2022. But, Nemkov loses the Rumble fight. Romero gets taken out, so now you don't have the possibility of a Romero sliding in. Big shuffle up, but still, I'm looking forward to the conclusion of this light heavyweight tournament when it does happen.
Yeah,
a couple weeks.
And I'm trying not to be biased here because we did have Julius on our show, and he was like a great guest. I really like talking to him. This is like, for sure, Nemkov will be betting wise pretty heavily favored over Julius, I'm sure, just based on what they've done and whatnot, who they've faced. But if you watch Julius Angliscus's fights, like the guy is a physical fucking monster, and he's relatively unknown. So I think you bring up a good point for Nemkov. This is like rough, right? This is a very brutal fight for him, just based on the physicality that Angliscus brings. But those are the breaks. That's what you do in a tournament, right?
Yeah.
You risk to guys that people don't really know about. It's kind of the beauty of it.
I know. Possibly the biggest story on this card, or maybe not biggest story, but a guy that really needed a win that got it in impressive fashion. Neiman Gracie in the co-main event, tearing through Mark Lemminger, which he should have done. But again, like he'd lost, I believe, 2 of his last 3 to the elite of the division. We are kind of wondering where he is. Man, really impressive performance for him.
Was that his first standing TKO, I believe? I thought he looked really good. And I don't know how long he's been with Rafael Cordero. I think this might be his second fight, but that is a great, great move for him. And he's also a guy, we didn't see it in this fight. You hear the name Gracie and you kind of think he fights a certain way. He's a guy who actually has pretty fucking good wrestling. I know he was at Henzo's, and that's typically a jiu-jitsu school that turns out good takedown artists. And now if he's working with Rafael Cordero at Kings, he's got all the pieces. Yeah, I think he's a fit to stay around the top of that division.
Absolutely. You know what's funny about Bellator and I guess MMA in general? It's like every once in a while you get like these random like folk heroes, and we saw one on this card. Ben Big Tuna Parrish, this guy that just does not look the part, comes out there and starts his 5-0 Christian Edwards as like a plus 1,000 underdog. Remember a couple years ago that dude that like was straight from like the butcher shop that fought Jake Hager, and he was like the man for a couple weeks. Like, it's funny how guys like this come through. Like, I don't know what the future holds for Ben Parrish, but for one night the guy was a hero.
Yeah, I was out Saturday night, so I was watching all these fights live, but like scrolling through Twitter, just seeing that guy's body show up all over, and people being like it or not, this is the peak male physique or whatever that quote is from Aaron Revel. Like, yeah, I was like, oh, I can't wait to see what this guy did.
Yeah, I mean the knockout was beautiful.
Yeah, no, I mean that's stuff like that is like, I like the high level MMA fights the most. Probably give me John Jones in a 5-round fight. Give me Alexander Volkanovsky in a 5-round fight. But also, what keeps me coming back every single time is these like jiggly boys doing cool shit. Like it's never not going to be fun.
I know, man. I know. All right, let's close the book on this weekend and move on to UFC 266 because it is the dominating, topic in our MMA world, right? And like we talked about earlier, there is a lot to like on this card. But, dude, for me, and I'm sure for you, I don't know if like you're the biggest Diaz brothers fan, but as a longtime MMA fan, like, it's crazy that we are at a fight week where Nick Diaz is about to fight. I mean, the guy is like, he's an MMA legend, right? Like, there's just so many moments in MMA history throughout the years that Nick Diaz has been a part of. I mean, the Robbie Lawler fight in 2004, choking out Takanori Gomi in Pride, laying in front of Anderson Silva, all these Strikeforce moments. I mean, the guy is a polarizing figure. And again, like, I know we have 2 title fights at the top, but for me, I'm just so drawn to talk about this Nick Diaz fight. So I think we should start there.
Absolutely.
And even then, like, you never know with Diaz, right? Like, he's had so many, he's just mishaps at the press conference. He's no-showed things. You don't know where his head is. It came out yesterday that this fight is going to be moved to middleweight. I guess the Diaz camp had asked for the fight to be moved to middleweight. So I don't, I don't know if that's, I don't know what's going on in the Nick Diaz head. And I think that's what kind of worries me about this fight. Because let's be honest, Nick Diaz has been out for 5-6 years now. And he didn't take that good care of his body, right? If you looked at him online, I mean, the guy was partying a lot. I did see the countdown episode. He does look really good. He seems calm. He actually seems a lot more comfortable in front of the cameras, which could be a good sign. But I really have no idea what kind of Nick Diaz we're going to see in the cage. I don't know if you have any sort of better grasp, or even if you can.
Like, how can you? How do you have any idea what kind of athlete shows up? I feel like I got to eat my words. I mean, he's not in the cage yet, right? The fact that we learn that days before the fight's supposed to happen, he's asked to go to class is not a really good sign. If you're a Nick Diaz fan, though, I'm going to chalk that up to just Nick being Nick and being stubborn and knowing probably that there's no way Robbie Lawler's going to say no to that. Robbie Lawler has also fought at middleweight. Robbie Lawler wants this huge payday, like, for sure. So hopefully that's not a harbinger of, like, Nick Diaz is going to come in on weighing 205 pounds or some shit. Like, hopefully that's not the case. Hopefully it's just Nick being Nick. I also, man, I got to eat my words. Just as we were talking about it, I forgot that I ever wrote this, but, like, it had to have been 2.5 years ago, maybe less, actually. It was on Combat Docket, the old website. I wrote something that was like, it's time to forget about Nick Diaz ever coming back to fight again. Because that when I wrote it, it was like around the time that new videos of Nick being drunk in public were coming out, and it just didn't look good. And I was like, this is clearly not a guy who is interested in coming back to MMA ever. And again, he's going to hopefully, I hope I'm proved wrong. But to answer your question, like, what can we expect? Like, who knows, right?
Who knows, man? I don't know.
He looked a little not great against Anderson Silva, but that was 2015, and that was Anderson Silva. So it's hard to, like, look at his last couple fights, because the fight before that was against fucking GSP in, 2013? So I have no idea. I do think we'll be entertained. Like, there's no way Diaz does not entertain. And for fans that are newer or don't really know what Diaz brings to the table, like, I'm excited. I hope it's the same. I hope he's talking shit. I hope he's mean mugging. I hope nothing has changed, because why he's so, like, such a fan favorite, or so polarizing even, is just, he's so unique. There is no other character quite like Nick Diaz. And I would say that includes his brother, Nate, who is much more, like, cleaner around the edges. Nate is, like, much more of, like, a showman, I think, much more of, like, kind of aware of how he's coming off, whereas Nick always struck me as the bigger brother who got in fights first, the guy who's, like, harder around the edges, and the guy who is, like, not pulling any punches about anything. I know we're talking about Nick Diaz, and I know there's Robbie Lawler on the other end, but the real, like, A side here, the thing that is getting asses in the seats, the thing that's getting fans like you and me, like, super hyped about UFC 266 is Nick Diaz.
Yeah, I think you summed that up really well. I mean, Nick is the realest of the real, right? And that's why people have always respected him. Dude, you said a year ago with Combat Docket writing him off. Man, dude, it's been like probably 3 years now where I've been like, you know what? Nick and Nate, they've always been two of my favorite fighters ever. I'm always going to ride with the Diaz brothers. But, like, I came to this realization like 3-4 years ago where I was like, yeah, Nick is never going to fight again. So I'm with you, man. It's crazy that we are at a Nick Diaz fight week. And yeah, here's the thing about Robbie. Like, we kind of know, like, what we might see against Robbie. Although, like, Robbie's last fight against, or I should say last two fights, and even three, like, if you go back to not counting the Ben Askren fight, but, like, the Rafael dos Anjos fight, like, Nick Diaz is not a grinder. He's not a wrestler like these guys. So I'd imagine that a lot of this is going to take place in the center of the octagon. I don't know how Nick's timing is going to be. I don't know how his chin's going to be. And I guess the same could be said for Robbie, who's like 39 years old now. I'm a little bit surprised that the odds are so close. I thought Robbie would have been I don't want to say a sizable favorite, but a decent favorite. But these odds are like pretty damn close to pure pick'em odds.
I think that's, I mean, yeah, that is surprising. I know Robbie's on a, what, 1, 2, 3, 4 fight
losing streak, yeah.
But it's against RDA. Let me go. RDA, so former
Ben Askren,
champion,
Colby Covington, Neil
Ben
Magny.
Askren, best MMA fighter of all time. Colby Covington, Neil Magny. He has looked a little gun shy, especially by Robbie Lawler standards, I think. But if there's a guy who's going to bring it out of him, I feel like it's Nick Diaz, who does not have like one hitter quitter power. So I could see Robbie Lawler like eating several shots and then like getting into the fight. Yeah, no, I mean, if I have to pick gun to my head, I'm going to pick Lawler here just based on like what we've seen lately. But who's to say, who's to say Nick Diaz can't, especially if Lawler is gun shy, like classic Nick Diaz is swarming, moving forward, and just like tons and tons and tons and tons of punches. And honestly, dude, who's to say it won't look like their first fight in 2004, where Robbie Lawler thinks, I'm not getting hit hard. I'm okay. I can throw back harder than this, and then just gets tagged and gets like kind of drowned. Yeah, I mean, if I had to put money on it, I would pick Robbie Lawler probably. But who am I rooting for, and who do I think could like legitimately win? Because I would never. We'll have our best bets show on Friday. Maybe Bob Voss will have some hot take, but for me, this is like an ultimate. Do not put money on this fight. Sit back and
enjoy the show.
Get your 209 tattoo ready because Nick Diaz is hopefully going to do something cool.
It's crazy, man. 2004, these guys fought, and again, I gotta say this: like, whenever Nick came back, like, I'm glad that they put him in a fight like this and didn't give him like a fucking Khamzat Chimaev or some bullshit like that. Like, Robbie was the perfect foil. They have the history. Obviously, I got to side with Nick Diaz. I don't know how it's going to happen. I don't know how it's going to look. I'd be lying to you if I told you I wasn't nervous on Wednesday, and we still got 3 more days to go. But I think Nick comes out there. I think he gets the job done. And, dude, if Nick Diaz wins, and mind you, something we haven't mentioned yet, this is a 5-round fight, by the way. It's a 5-round fight. If Nick wins, he becomes probably the hottest commodity in MMA. True or false?
So
everybody is going to be lining up to fight this guy, middleweights and welterweights.
Would Conor McGregor line up to fight him?
100%.
That would be
Conor McGregor, insane. Jorge Masvidal, Kamaru Usman, Israel Adesanya might even throw his goddamn name in there. It's Nick Diaz, man. If he comes out there and looks halfway decent, he's going to be the hottest commodity. It is.
Even if he wins, I think him looking good is going to be a big stretch. But he could prove me wrong, man. I think way back in the day, I picked BJ Penn to beat him, and he proved me wrong that night. So who fucking knows? You're absolutely right though that if he wins, like, he's going to be at like the top of MMA topics for a hot second because that's like instantly one of the biggest stories. Also, dude, before I forget, did you call for this fight before it was booked? I feel like I have a memory of you saying
I've been saying this fight, and I've been saying, I said this, or I said Matt Brown. Those are the 2 fights that they should make. 2 older guys with names that come to bring it. Like, this was perfect matchmaking. Yeah, I've been calling for this fight for a while, man. Since 2004, this shit happened. It's crazy.
Well, like, man, I totally think that Jorge Masvidal against Nick Diaz would be the fight to make if Nick wins here. There's history, like, with Nate and everything. It's fucking perfect.
Yeah, it is. Man, I'm pumped.
Yeah.
All right, let's jump to the top because there is 2 title fights on this card. Brian Ortega, Alexander Volkanovsky going at it for the 145-pound title. Not much better in MMA, man. I mean, Volkanovski does not get the credit that he deserves. And again, I think a lot of it is because he beat fan favorite Max Holloway. But, dude, Volkanovski is really, really freaking good. He's good everywhere. He's a good striker. He's calculated. He's patient. Taking on Brian Ortega, who, if we're looking at the first when he fought Max Holloway, that Brian Ortega is going to be in a lot of trouble against Volkanovski. But comes back and puts an absolute beating on Korean Zombie for 5 rounds. I don't know where Brian Ortega lies. Like I said, the guy that fought Max Holloway, Alexander Volkanovski is going to rip through. The guy that came in there against Chan Sung Jung, it's going to be a bit more interesting of a fight. Do you think Brian Ortega flat out has the skills to beat Alexander Volkanovski?
I do. I think he has the skills, the finishing ability to finish any featherweight in the world. I think Ortega is like, that's his best overall skill. I think is those like moments of violence where he can finish you. His front chokes are obviously incredible. Obviously his triangle chokes, T-City. His submission skills, I think, are some of the best in the world. And we've seen now on the feet as well, it's those moments of violence, right? He had the spinning elbow against Korean Zombie. That changed. I mean, I think that happened in the 2nd round. That changed the rest of the fucking fight. I think nobody else at featherweight really has that like ability with both their grappling and their striking to like change the fight at a moment's notice. And he's not just like, who am I trying to think? He's not just like Josh Emmett throwing, like for sure Josh Emmett has the ability to knock anybody out. But like, that's about it. Brian Ortega is like always threatening, I feel like. That said, I don't know if you want to talk about Volkanovski now, but like, I think you kind of nailed it. Like, the guy is so consistent, so composed. He can fight on the counter. He can fight on the lead. He can fight to whatever game plan he kind of feels like, right? We saw that especially in the Holloway fights. Like, Volkanovski decided to pick apart Max Holloway's legs, and he didn't care if it was boring. He didn't care if he wasn't like destroying Holloway. He did it. And I think more so than anything, like, these guys are like two sides of a coin, right? You got Ortega, who's gonna maybe not always be the most consistent, but when he has those moments of offense, it is a sight to behold. And then you have Volkanovski, who is like Mr. Consistency, sticks to a game plan, does exactly what he needs to do, and is rarely like out of sorts. So, man, I'm really excited about this fight. Really excited. I was trying to like put down in more detail this morning, rewatching a bunch of their older fights, and I keep flip-flopping. I know who I'm going to pick because I, to be honest, picked Ortega a long time ago at first blush, and I'm going to stick with that, but I think this is a really, really close fight.
I think if Ortega, kind of like you just said, I think when Volkanovski gets in a rhythm and he gets comfortable, I mean, it's like all cylinders go. If Ortega lets Volkanovski fight at his pace and dictate the range and dictate where the fight goes, I think he's going to be in a lot of trouble. I think he's going to have to use those bouts of explosiveness. He's going to have to offset Volkanovski. Because Volkanovski, again, gets in a rhythm, starts picking apart the legs. Volkanovski is just so smooth at all levels of the game, you know?
Yeah. No, I was going to say, too, like, this is also why I think why it's hard to pick is because Ortega does have a tendency to start slowly, and Volkanovski is a guy who's like on it right away, constantly moving side to side. I think Volkanovski's lateral movement on the feet could frustrate Ortega. Hopefully Ortega is prepared for that kind of like constant movement, because Ortega is much more like plodding. But what I was going to say is I typically think of Ortega as a slow starter, but he came out against Korean Zombie, popping the jab, fighting to a game plan right away. And if he's able to do that against Volkanovski, like right off the jump, know that Volkanovski is going to be moving a lot. Just know that and don't get frustrated by it and work to a game plan right from the jump. I think, Ortega can hang with him every minute of the fight, assuming, he doesn't come out too slowly. Because you're absolutely right that when Volkanovski's going, he's moving side to side, he's feinting, landing a jab, he's feinting, landing a 1-2-3 leg kick. He's like really puts it together really well. So yeah, it's like I keep saying it over and over again, man. It's a hard fight to pick.
It's a really good fight, and for like, again, like I watched the whole season of The Ultimate Fighter, and I liked that Volkanovski had that showcase there. You got to kind of see like into his personality a bit and some of the stuff they've shown off of it. I really like him. I mean, again, that's not going to affect my pick. I was going to pick him regardless, but whatever. I got Volkanovski. I don't think he's as strong of a finisher as Brian Ortega, but again, I think he's just going to get in a rhythm early. I think he's going to be able to dictate the pace of the fight, where the fight goes, and I think especially later he's going to be able to pick apart Ortega pretty easily. So I'm going Volkanovsky by decision.
Yeah, I guess I'm really torn. I do think the fact that Volkanovski will not be able to like safely go to his wrestling when he needs to is a bit of a difference maker. Not that, Volkanovski only took down Holloway like 2 or 3 times and just briefly, but he needed those moments in their second fight. He needed to be able to like get in Holloway's chest, clinch with him and take him down if he need be. Whereas that is, we know, like totally not a safe thing to do against Brian Ortega. So I think that'll make a bit of a difference and maybe cause some errors from Volkanovski on the feet. I think Brian Ortega gets a finish here.
Wow, okay.
I'm going to say, just because he's so fucking good at landing those big shots, getting those big moments. I don't know how it happens. I'm going to say third round. I do think if it gets to the championship rounds, it probably favors Volkanovski even more because we've seen him fight at like such a really high pace for 5 rounds now. But I got to ride like way back like a year ago. I picked Ortega to be the featherweight champion at the end of this year. So I gotta ride with that. And I do think it's doable. I'm not just doing that because I'm
I think it's doable as well.
Yeah.
And the odds are relatively close. I mean, Volkanovski is like minus 170, plus 150 in the comeback on Ortega. I think that's pretty fair.
Also, dude, like Max Holloway dropped Ortega, or not Ortega. He dropped
Volkanovski twice in that fight.
So, he's not above getting tagged. Volkanovski is a guy who does not get enough credit for how good he is because he does all this right. I'm totally with you that he's better than what most people give him credit for. So we'll see, man. We'll see. I'm excited.
Yeah, it's a great fight. Co-main event, flyweight title on the women's side on the line. I mean, let's be honest. Very, very happy for Lauren Murphy. She deserved this, but is there anything that we can say besides Valentina next topic? I mean, does Lauren Murphy pose any sort of threat in this fight?
I'm trying to think where, right? Like on the feet.
Like, here's the thing.
No.
Is it even on the ground? Valentina is so good on the ground. You know what I'm saying?
I think Lauren Murphy's good on the ground. I think she's a brown belt, but is she gonna, even if she gets on top of Valentina, we've seen Valentina bottom before against Juliana Pena, fucking tapped her.
Beautiful.
So yeah, I think this is no disrespect to Lauren Murphy, who has put in her time, has earned this opportunity, but like, wake me up when we got Miranda Maverick fighting for a title or we got Erin Blanchfield fighting for a title, because that is the future of flyweight. Unfortunately, the current of flyweight is Valentina Shevchenko for the time being. We might be looking at another Jessica I type knockout here if Lauren Murphy is a little too confident.
Yeah, I think it's going to end bad for Lauren Murphy. The odds are crazy right now. I mean, FanDuel has Valentina as a minus 2,000 favorite.
Jesus Christ.
Man, you can get her as low as minus 1,100.
We got to talk. Our best bets episode. I can see if we can. I'm gonna like dig into those props and try to find somewhere where we can make some money on that fight.
Yeah, it's got to be like Valentina by like third round submission or something crazy.
Something super specific.
Yeah. All right. Hey, by the way, put some respect on Menon Fiorot's name. She's on the undercard of this card. She's on the early prelims. Keep an eye on her. She is really freaking good. She's 2 or 3-0 in the UFC right now. French fighter. Again, she's not going to be fighting Valentina next, but maybe 2 or 3 fights from now, she's going to be very interesting.
Yeah. French MMA on the come up. Also, her nickname is The Beast, which I don't think I've seen a single female nickname with The Beast, which I appreciate.
Yeah. All right. Curtis Blades taking on Jarzinio Rosenstrok. This is kind of do or die for both of these guys. We've seen Curtis Blades get right up to a title shot and then get finished a couple times now. This kind of like Curtis Blades' last fight against Derek Lewis. This screams all Curtis Blades, but he's fighting another guy with a ton of power. Do you think Curtis Blades can stay out of trouble for 3 rounds and either grind out a decision or finish Rosenstrok, or do you think he gets finished once again by another powerful heavyweight?
I'm gonna go with a wrestler, I guess. But you're absolutely right. Like, this is the story we've been told about Curtis Blades before, where it's like, all right, he's fighting a guy with very little wrestling defense and big power. You should be able to, like, this is, if you want to be a heavyweight champion, Curtis Blades, you got to beat these guys. This is stylistically a matchup that favors you because you have a super clear path to victory. But I'll go with Curtis Blades here, but who knows, man? I mean, that Derek Lewis knockout was not good for the old brain, I'm sure. And Rosenstrok can bang for sure. But Rosenstrok is also, I feel like, he's getting a little bit more shine than he might deserve, if I'm being totally honest. So I'm going to go with Blades.
Yeah, I'm going with Blades too. I think he's going to be able to stay out of trouble long enough and put Rosenstrok down. Rosenstrok has, we've seen him kind of shell up and not throw enough. And again, if he's really worried about the takedowns, we also saw him not stop Alistair Overeem in the last 5 seconds of the fight. He was losing 24 minutes and 50 seconds of. So we'll see. But I favor Curtis Blades as well. Main card opener, Jessica Andrade taking on Cynthia Calvillo. What a goddamn fight that is. Kind of flying under the radar. Jessica Andrade fall victim to Valentina Shevchenko in the last fight. Devastating fashion, but she's a little tank at 125. Calvillo solid as well. I favor Calvillo ever so slightly in this fight, but it should be freaking good.
I think it'll depend a bit on if Calvillo is really filling out at 125. I think she's still pretty small for that weight class. And I assume she'll probably want to wrestle and grapple with Andrade here, which technically I think Calvillo is probably a little bit better, but that's a big ask if she's feeling physically like outmatched here.
It is. And then this man, there are some good freaking fights on these prelims. Prelim, I guess, featured fight. Marlon Moraes taking on Merab Dvalishvili. And Marlon Moraes, man, does he need a freaking win. He's coming off 2 straight losses, 2 finishes at the hands of Rob Font and Corey Sandhagen. I mean, dude, he's a good judge's decision away from being on a 4-fight losing streak, because that Jose Aldo fight was very close. He was finished by Henry Cejudo. Prior to that, I mean, he's just taken on a tank in Merab Dvalishvili. Here's the thing. If Marlon Moraes can keep this on the feet for long stretches of the time, I think he wins this fight, because I think his striking is just far and away better than Merab Dvalishvili's. But Merab has shown that he has a great chin. He has insane cardio, and I mean, he's just a freaking grinder. I'm going to go with Marlon, but again, I would not be surprised either way.
Yeah, I'm with you basically on that breakdown. Just because I think Marlon's chin is not great at this point. Those back-to-back really hard knockouts, but I don't think Merab is the guy to like really test it again. Maybe he can prove me wrong, but the guy's Merab Dvalishvili is a wrestler through and through and through. And he might be able to out-wrestle Moraes for 15 full minutes here, but who knows? I never don't want to tune into a Marlon Moraes fight. Best kicker in the game, one of the best kickers in the game. Yeah, always exciting. Yeah.
Merab is a huge favorite too. -250, -275. I'm surprised it's that.
I don't know about that.
I'm surprised it's that steep.
Man. They're just. I assume that's just assuming. Marlon Moraes can be, if it gets later in the fight, he slows down a lot. He gets easier to take down for sure. But, I mean, look at Merab's, like, who has he fought? Cody Stamann, really good fighter, but also a wrestler. John Dodson, I think at 135 is not as big of a win as it maybe is. I guess he has a Casey Kenny win. That looks good in retrospect. But I don't know. I like Moraes just with more consistent elite level experience.
Yeah, I agree. As of right now, I believe this fight is still on, but I think it's in danger. Dan Hooker taking on Nasrat Haqparast. I know Nasrat has been having problems with his visa getting into the country. Really hoping this fight happens because it should be a banger. Good to see Dan Hooker in there with a striker and not. I mean, he's had a tough go about it lately, but Dan Hooker, a pretty sizable favorite. I would favor him in that fight, but Haqparast is a very solid dog.
Yeah, I still don't know if that fights happening, right? Dan Hooker had to get a visa at the last second. I don't have the article in front of me, but I know Hack Press is now like begging on social media to get it at the last second. So we'll see, man.
Yeah, I hope it happens. A couple other names on this card. Chris Daukaus, solid fighter, fighting Shamil Abdurakhmanov. Fan favorite Roxanne Modafferi taking on Talia Santos. Again, Manon Furia. I can't even say her name. She's freaking solid. Jalen Turner's on this card. A lot of fun names from top to bottom on this card.
Yeah, even the prelim, the very first fight of the night, Omar Morales is a guy I'm pretty high on. He's only lost in the UFC to
Giga
Chikadze. So I mean, and he I did a close look at Giga's game, and I felt like Omar Morales was the guy that gave him the most trouble in the UFC. So he's somebody that I think we should be watching first fight of the fucking night.
Yeah, agreed. Bangers, top to bottom. Couple other big things going on this weekend. Anthony Joshua taking on Alexander Usyk on Saturday night. If you've never seen Alexander Usyk fight, do not sleep on him. Anthony Joshua is a big favorite, minus 300, rightful favorite, but Usyk is slick as all hell. And we've seen Joshua lose before. We've seen him frustrated before. Usyk, not the biggest heavyweight, but man, don't be surprised if he gives Joshua some problems in this fight.
Yeah, really fleet of foot guy, fights like a smaller heavyweight because he is a very small heavyweight.
Yeah, very small heavyweight.
I want Usyk to win because I think he's super fun, and it's always nice to see the G.I. Joe looking figure get beat. But I think when we had Jeremy Harridges on, I think he picked an early pick was Anthony Joshua, just because Usyk hasn't shown at heavyweight that he's is able to put a beating on guys that are actually true heavyweights. So we'll see, man. But that's a huge fight. The big four in boxing coming together at heavyweight.
Yeah, and then this weekend, September 25th and 26th, we do have Who's Number One Championship grappling going on. Again, Ben had sat down and talked with Elizabeth Clay prior to this. She's going to be in the women's heavyweight division, but there's 5 different brackets: men's 155, women's 115, men's 185, women's heavyweight, and men's heavyweight. They're all stacked top to bottom with huge names. I mean, what division are you most looking forward to right now?
Well, it was men's 185, but there's been so much shifting. I think Andrew Wiltsey, Craig Jones, all those guys came out. Man, that's a tough question. Off the top of my head, I'm really excited about men's 155.
Yeah.
Musumichi, there's beef with Gio Martinez there still. I want to see. I don't have it in front of me. I want to see. I wrote a fucking.
Damian Anderson is on fire. He's in this bracket. Cade Rotolo's in this bracket.
That's it. That's the match. I want to see Mikey against Cade. I think that is one of the best because it's style-wise. And again, for our jiu-jitsu listeners out there, we're going to talk about some jiu-jitsu shit. But style-wise, I think they are the perfect end. Mikey Musumichi, pure technique, always everything perfectly textbook, still creative, and flashy in many ways. But Cade Rotolo, insanely unorthodox, just crazy high pace. I hope that happens in the finals. I'm also pretty pumped about, honestly, women's heavyweight, because I think we might see Gabby Garcia lose. Anna Carolina Vieira has looked really good in her recent no-gi matches, and got off a loss to Nachieli DeJesus. So I don't know, man. This is a true blockbuster event. And last thing, I don't have a pick, but women's 115. If you want to
really
see,
good, man.
Sometimes me and my girlfriend talk about men's heavyweight jiu-jitsu can sometimes just be guys pushing. Sorry, my dogs are pushing around in the background. It can just be guys pushing. Women's 115 is always action. They hit the fucking ground and they are going after it. Grace Gundrum, super fun. Hey, dogs, stop.
You're having Who's Number One in the background.
Yeah, literally my dog named Gracie right now is trying to wrestle with the other dog, so it's going on. But dude, I can't talk enough about this event. I'm excited. I think I'm going to be tuned in most for the Mikey Musumichi matches. I want to see more of him in Nogi.
I would really hope that they match him and Gio up right away. You got to do that.
You can't not.
You have to do that first round. You can't take the risk of because I mean, dude, Gabriel Souza, Diego Oliveira, Mikey Musumeci, Cade Ruotolo, Damian Anderson, Josh Cisneros, Gio Martinez, Colabat. There's no guarantee that if you don't put them together that they're both going to make the finals. So I think you got to strike that right off the rip.
And dude, nobody's saying this, I feel like, but a dark horse in that division because I think this is his first time ever doing who's number one, and I don't even know if he speaks English. Gabriel Souza is like low key. That guy has a submission on Josh Cisneros. He's an IBJJF guy, I know, but don't be shocked if he gives Mikey Musumeci problems, or what you're saying, I could see them fucking it up and doing Gio Martinez against Gabriel Souza in the first round, and Gabriel Souza beats him. Yeah, not taking anything away from Gio, but that guy is a stud that nobody is talking about.
Yeah, every single one of these brackets are just stacked with awesome names. Yeah, check it out. It's gonna be good.
Yeah, and it's gonna be the Kaynan Duarte show at heavyweight. I don't see anybody giving that guy problems at heavyweight.
No, definitely not. Man, what a combat sports weekend. You got who's number one. You got a huge boxing fight in boxing's biggest division. You got UFC 266 pay-per-view. It's gonna be crazy. I don't got anything else, man. You?
That's it, man. I'm there with you. It's a good weekend for sports.
We are going to be back on Friday doing our best bets episode. We're going to be trying to win you guys some money on the fights. Don't forget, we had Elizabeth Clay on the show this past weekend to talk about her division coming up this weekend at Who's Number One. Please subscribe wherever you follow us, YouTube, SoundCloud, Spotify, iTunes. We appreciate the support. We'll talk to y'all soon.
Face the pain.